Hi, my name is Leah.
I'm George. My name is Adi.
And I'm Hausen. And today we're here to talk about the historical and contemporary relations between the Congo and the numerous external actors, mainly Europe, and how these relations have changed over time. The Democratic Republic of Congo was first settled thousands of years ago, and in the 1200s the Congo Kingdom, or the Congo Empire, arose, centered in modern northern Angola and including extreme western Congo territories around Lake Kisala and central Katanga. Later in 1482, the Portuguese became the first Europeans to visit Congo, and they set ties with the King of Congo. In the 16th and 17th century, Portuguese were no longer the only Europeans to be involved in the Congo, and they were joined by the British, the Dutch, and the French, who engaged in slave trade. In the 1870s, King Leopold II of Belgium set up a private venture to colonize Congo with the aid of prominent explorer Henry Stanley, who navigated the Congo River to the Atlantic Ocean between 1847 and 1878. King Leopold II became the King of Belgium in 1865 and commissioned Stanley to establish the King's Authority in the Congo Basin in 1879 to 1887. What's interesting here is that the Congo was not a colony to Belgium, but to begin with, but a personal property of King Leopold. In 1884 to 1885, during the Berlin Conference, King Leopold, aware of the vast fortune to be made, convinced the United States, then the major European powers, to recognize his sovereignty over one of Africa's largest central regions, the Congo. It was during the Berlin Conference that European powers embarked on a continent-wide land grab, and in less than 20 years, 90% of African territory was placed under European colonial rule. King Leopold created a private company which he claimed its sole mission was to free the Congolese people from foreign oppressors, mainly the Arab slave traders. In 1885, King Leopold announces the establishment of the Congo Free State, ruled by him. He claimed that his presence in the region was purely a matter of stimulating civilization and education amongst people whom he perceived as uncultured and uncivilized barbarians. He assured the world that his regime would bring prosperity and affluence to the Congo. This is a notion that's often ingrained in the minds of African nations by their colonial rules in order to make them feel inferior, and thus making exploitation of their land resources and labor easily accessible without any resistance. King Leopold's lust for wealth and the belief that in order for Belgium to have a place amongst the great powers, they had to have a colony. He used the resources of the Congo and the labor of the Congolese to further advance his own personal wealth. He treated the Congo as a private business rather than a country and people who had a long-standing history of their own.
The main question is, why was there so much bother over Africa? Most African colonies at the time, including the Congo Free State, were created for the economic exploitation of their natural resources and labour. These resources included ivory, rubber, and precious minerals, and all of these resources had extreme demand in Europe and therefore were highly profitable. The Congo Free State under King Leopold II is known for its brutal exploitation of the native Congolese population and the mass massacre that resulted. Under Leopold II, there were practically no laws or restrictions that protected the Congolese people and their land. The people of the Congo River Basin were forced to work as porters, miners, rubber tappers, woodcutters, and railroad builders for the European interests. The Europeans were free to adopt merciless policies of kidnapping, mutilation, robbery, and murder in the goal of extracting the desired labour and resources from the local population as they pleased. Rubber was in serious demand in Europe for the manufacturing of bicycles and automobile tyres at this time. A colonial army called the Force Publique, which means public force, was created from the local Africans and Belgian officers in order to promote labour, spark revolts, and ensure the collection of rubber and ivory. Specified quotas were demanded from each village for rubber, and if these were not met, vicious punishments were put in place. It wasn't uncommon for the hands and feet of women, men, and children to be amputated as punishment for not collecting enough rubber or ivory. Armed with modern weapons and the shikot, which is the bullwhip made of hippopotamus hide, the Force Publique habitually tortured hostages, slaughtered families of the rebels, burned down villages, and flogged and raped the Congolese people.
In 1906, Leopold II was forced to turn over the Congo Free State to the Belgian government. They were less brutal than Leopold II's agents were, but that wasn't a very high bar. The newly named Belgian Congo lasted until 1960, when the Belgians decolonised due to international pressure. It's reported that the Belgians had a 30-year plan for the Congo, including mass primary education, but external international pressure led them to decolonise in a rapid and disorganised fashion. The USA sponsored Colonel Joseph Mobutu to lead the Congo following decolonisation. This ill-planned decolonisation was very bad, as the levels of education in the Congo were terrible. Very few university graduates or people with any kind of leadership training, and with a large portion of the country not even having basic levels of education. The Belgian occupation of the Congo, while brutal, was very paternalistic. They took control over the Congo and its population and didn't worry about training any of the natives. The population was ill-equipped to deal with this independence that they had been granted. Mobutu's Congo, newly named Zaire, was an extremely corrupt place. His main way of garnering support was via clientelism, i.e. giving his friends and favours or gifts in exchange for their support. Mobutu's government raided the country's cash reserves to buy this support, which worked well until they ran out of money. In 1976, Zaire was granted its first loan from the IMF, $47 million. Mobutu promised to get a hold on the country's finances in return for this loan. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful and relied more and more on loans from external sources until 1990, where Zaire's national debt was $10 billion. Under Mobutu's rule, any internal political opposition was quickly stamped out, and it was actually the Rwandan genocide which led to a downfall. Around 850,000 refugees fled from Rwanda to Zaire for safety from the genocide that was taking place. The Rwandan leaders set up an organisation in Zaire called the Alliance des Forces Démocratiques pour la Libération, led by Laurent Kabila, who would kill the refugees that had fled persecution. This doubled as an uprising against Mobutu, who fled the country and died soon after. This prompted the Second Congo War between the Congo, Angola and Namibia against Rwanda, Burundi and Uganda. This brutal war was descended from a political war to a war for resources in the southeast of the Congo. The new president, Laurent Kabila, was assassinated in 2001 by his bodyguard. He was dubbed the new Mobutu by the international community, which shows that there was quite a lot of unrest surrounding his presidency. This prompted the end of the Second Congo War. The UN then dispatched its largest ever peacekeeping force to the newly named Democratic Republic of Congo. This force was effective in keeping the peace, but no official government was put in place, and it was in the job of NGOs like the Red Cross to provide normally governmental services, public amenities like schools and hospitals. In 2006, following the peaceful couple of years for the DRC, Joseph Kabila, son of Laurent Kabila, was democratically elected. Things have been more peaceful since his election. However, there are still claims that Joseph Kabila silences his political opposition. China and the DRC have engaged in a trade deal recently. China has invested $9 billion into the DRC's infrastructure in return for the DRC's abundant resources. This has led to the IMF, the EU and the UN to criticise the relationship due to its lessening their influence on the DRC. The relationship between China and the DRC has been called neo-colonialism, but as of yet, neither of the parties are complaining.
The relations between the EU and the Congo are established within the framework of the Cotonou Agreement, which has the central objective of reducing poverty. Due to the horrible atrocities experienced in the past, Belgium, just like most of the other European countries that were colonials in the past, offer a large amount of foreign aid to the Congo in order to compensate with the economic conditions that the colonialism has led to today. For the period of 2008 to 2013, a global amount of 1,200 million euros of aid has been mobilized for the country. But the fact is, not much has changed. Countries in the United Nations like Belgium focus on aid, with the true goal being political power, not creating a catalyst for true change in the Congo. A key aspect that has changed between the relationship between the EU and the Congo is the fact that due to the emergence of China as a foreign aid alternative, the EU's political hold on Congo has loosened.
To summarise, Leopold took the Congo in 1885 by force. Belgium then took it in 1908. In the 1960s, Belgium relinquished their control over the Congo, leaving it with very few leaders or people who were trained to cope with this independence. Up until 2006, there was war after war, uprising after uprising, leaving the Congo no better than when it was first gained independence. In 2015, the Chinese engaged in a potentially exploitative deal with the Congo, which will return infrastructure for resources. It's been called neocolonialism, and recent studies show that the Chinese aren't training the Congolese people to the extent that we were led to believe. In conclusion, the Congo has been exploited since Leopold II's first engagement, and when it was left on its own, it had no real means to survive, as they have been stripped away. Now, are they being exploited again? While we can hope this relationship between the Congo and the external world actors has changed, it could be that the only difference is who is doing the exploiting.